Today, using Apple Motion, we're going to recreate the Abdaal picture-in-picture effect for Final Cut Pro. Also, if you're a patron, you can download and use this effect right now. Opening up Apple Motion, you should get the project browser. If you don't get the project browser, you can push Command, Option, and N. From there, we'll select the Final Cut effect, and you can leave your preset and frame rate and duration at whatever settings you like. After that, we'll go ahead and push open. The first thing we're going to want to do in Apple Motion is right click and select new group. Let's go ahead and rename this group to be the image mask group. Now we're going to need to create an image mask. So come on down to your rectangle tool and click and drag to get it roughly in the size and scale that you want for your picture-in-picture effect. After that, we can go over to our properties, locate the position parameter, click on this down arrow, and select reset parameter. So now everything should be perfectly centered up. After that, we'll want to go into the shape settings and disable the outline. So you should have these nice sharp edges. Going back over to the left side, we'll find the geometry settings and drag up the roundness. So now we have these really nicely rounded corners, just like Ali Abdaal's effect. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead and collapse this image mask group. Now that we have this image mask group, we're going to want to create a clone layer of that group. So I'll push K. The reason we create a clone layer from that group is because if we made a clone layer from the rectangle inside of the group, the position parameters would not translate to the new clone. So if I were to create a clone layer off that main rectangle and move this original rectangle layer, you'll see how the clone layer is just standing still. However, by creating a clone layer of the actual group, it is creating a clone of everything inside of that group, and that means that if we move this original rectangle layer, it's also going to move the clone layer. So this will actually save us a lot of steps when it comes to needing to link up position parameters. Now that we have this clone layer, let's go ahead and rename this to be the stroke clone. After that, we'll go on up to our filters and locate the border settings. Go ahead and select stroke. You'll see now that we have this nice red outline around everything. And again, if I move this original rectangle, it's going to maintain that shape. With this stroke layer selected, we can go ahead and select hide source. So now that secondary clone that we created will be hidden, which means it will not cover up any layers that we put underneath it. The reason why that's important is if we were to take our effect source, right click and select add image mask, we can now drag in this image mask group into that image mask well. So now everything is being cut out. If we didn't hide that effect source, you would see the original rectangle covering up everything. So now that is hidden, we just see the backdrop. So now that we have this outline, let's go ahead and add a nice gradient color to it. Selecting our effect source, we can come over to the left side and change the stroke type from color over to gradient. And you'll see now that we have this nice little gradient color around the edge. What we can do is click this down arrow to get into our gradient settings, and we can go ahead and adjust these colors to get it looking exactly as we like it. So I'll get it over to this nice kind of teal turquoise blue color. So now we kind of want this gradient to be going around the edges. Now, in my opinion, this is a lot more complicated than it needs to be. I was really expecting Apple Motion to have some kind of offset slider for a gradient outline. However, I have looked for hours and I have been unable to find that effect. If you are a Motion 5 expert, please share a setting down in the comments that might make this a little bit easier. But in the meantime, this is how you can pull off the effect. To do this effect, what we'll need to do is go ahead and click on this down arrow under the end parameters. If we adjust these, you can see how the colors are shifting around. But we want a way to auto animate these numbers so that we don't have to click and add keyframes and adjust it in a way where it might look like it's a circle. So to do that, let's go ahead and we'll create one last group. So I'll right click, select a new group, and we'll just call this group the animation group. And just for clarity's sake, I'll rename this other group to be the stroke group. Now that we've done that, go ahead and click to add a rectangle, and it can be any shape, it really does not matter. With that rectangle created, we can go ahead and actually hide it. Then we can go up to our behaviors, we'll go to basic motion and select motion path. Going to the left side, we can change the path shape from open spline over to a circle. So now we have this nice little circle shape, and if I move forward, you can see how that rectangle is animating around it. Let's go ahead and scale up the circle to fill the entire frame, something like that. We could also select our rectangle and adjust it so that the circle is directly centered up on our object. Now that we've done that, we can jump inside of our stroke group and find the stroke filter here. We'll go to the end parameters that we expanded and find the X and Y values. Clicking on this down arrow, we can select add a parameter behavior and select link. Now we can drag that rectangle that is animated into this well. From there, we need to change the compatible parameters over to properties, transform, position, and Y. What that means is the Y position of this rectangle is going to drive the Y position of our gradient. After that, we can go ahead and select the stroke one more time. We'll find the X value, click this down arrow, add a parameter behavior, link, drag the rectangle in there, and change the compatible parameters over to properties, transform, position, and X. So now if we watch the animation, you can see how that gradient is going around the edge really nicely. So now it's time to go ahead and add in some nice glow. To do that, we'll select our stroke group, go up to filters, go down to glow, and then select neon. Let's go ahead and adjust these settings to get it to a level that we like. However, I want this gradient to have a nice gradual gradation off on the glow. I don't want everything to be at full glow all the time. So to achieve that, we'll select our stroke filter and we'll find the gradient options here. You'll see this white bar at the top. That indicates the opacity. If it's white, that means it's fully opaque. If it's black, that means it is transparent. Let's go ahead and click to add a secondary point to this line, and we'll go to the left side where the white values are. We'll click on that, and you'll notice that I have this opacity slider. If I drag that down all the way to 0, you can see how that is affecting our glow filter. It's actually only showing up in that top left corner. I definitely want there to be a full outline around the border, so we'll just lightly adjust that opacity till it's to a level of my liking. But now if I push play, we can see we have this really nice little animation going around the outer edge. If I wanted to speed it up, all I would need to do is go to the motion path settings and find the loops setting. Go ahead and drag that up, and you'll notice now that the animation is playing out much faster. And what's really great is this is going to be perfectly looped in Final Cut Pro. So what we could do is go to the very end of our project, we'll push Shift M to add a marker. I'm going to double click on that marker and change the type from standard over to project loop end. So motion is now telling Final Cut Pro where the loop end is of this project, and that means it will continually loop from that point. If we didn't do that, all of the animation values that we added would be stretched out across the entire duration of our project. That means if we had a really short clip and we applied this effect onto it, the animation would be really fast around it. Or if it was a really long clip, the animation would be really slow. So by adding in that loop point, motion now knows, okay, I need to loop here in Final Cut, and your animation values are going to be exactly the same. Now that we've set that up, it's going to be important that you actually publish a lot of different parameters so you have control in Final Cut Pro. So jumping inside of our image mask group, we'll locate our rectangle. We'll go over to the property settings and we'll actually just publish the position. So I'll click on that and select publish. So now I can actually adjust the position of this picture-in-picture effect directly in Final Cut Pro. On top of that, we might want to go into the neon settings and you could actually publish the outer brightness. We could also go into the stroke settings and publish the different color values. So I'll go ahead and select this white color and click on this down arrow, select publish. Then I'll select on the teal turquoise color and I'll click on this down arrow and select publish. You could even go as far as to publish the opacity on each of these sliders if you would like. It's totally up to you. Finally, something you might want to publish is the width of this outer line. So I'll publish that. Then we could jump inside of the motion path and publish the amount of loops. So if you want this animation to be much faster, we could go ahead and just publish that as well. If you want to get a good idea of how many items are published, you could jump inside of your project settings, go over to project, and locate all of the different settings that you have published here. You could also click and drag these around as you need them, Or if you want to rename one of them, you could go ahead and double click on it and rename it to whatever you like. So now that we have done that, we can go ahead and push Command S and we could just call this the Ali Abdaal pip. Then we could jump inside of whatever category we like. I'll throw it into tutorials and push publish. So let's go ahead and go on over into Final Cut Pro. If I want to apply this effect, I'll jump inside of my effects and I'll just look up Ali Abdaal. There it is, the Ali Abdaal pip. I'll drag that on. You'll see how it's nicely cutting me out in the frame. It's got the beautiful animation on the outside. We can click and drag to adjust the pip position, and then of course we could adjust the color of our actual outline to get some really different looks. So that is how you can recreate the Ali Abdaal picture-in-picture effect for Final Cut Pro. If this video was helpful, consider pressing the like button. Also, don't forget that if you are a patron, you can download this effect right now, and I'm gonna add some nice on-screen controls to make your life that much easier. If this video was helpful, you may want to check out this video where I show you how to create some really nice map animations using Apple Motion. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one.